We're legitimately witnessing the fall of the United States. It doesn't work for our generation, bro. It just does not.
What is a job actually worth if it can't buy you an independent life? A record 25 million young adults are currently living with their parents. And I think the common reaction to this is like, okay, well, they just can't find a job. They are failing to launch. They, can't get their shit together. That is not what's happening here. Most of these people are actually employed. They are making money. And I think this just goes to show how broken the economy is and how difficult it is for young people to build a financially independent life today. This is also about how employment is no longer providing the thing that it was traditionally supposed to provide, which is that path into traditional adulthood. The basic deal is like you get a job, you move out, and you start building your life. A lot of the way we think about adulthood and if adulthood is successful or not is built around that milestone, and financial independence is a huge part of that. And traditionally, having a job is supposed to provide the ability to move out of your parents' house, cover things like maybe student loans, grocery, transportation, etc. The basic infrastructure of an independent life. But when the financial environment around us, our economy, when wages and the cost of living cannot close that gap, we increasingly have young people failing to launch, not able to take that step into adulthood. And on top of this, families become the kind of backstop for a lot of the young people. And for some people, they don't have that option. And for those that do, their parents become that unofficial housing system, emergency fund, social safety net. And this really does hide the scale of the overall economic problem. The system might appear to be functioning right now, even though, it's not for a lot of young people, and a lot of people are continuing to struggle.
Boomers always like to remind us that the reason their houses were so affordable in the late 70s and early 80s is because the square footage was only 1,200 square feet. The average square footage today is 1,800. So we have a 600 square foot difference. So of course, our house is going to be more expensive. Let's run the numbers and see how this works out. In 1980, the median house price was $50,000. If you adjust that for inflation, it's $210,000, and the average square footage was 1,200. So you take $210,000 divided by 1,200, gives you $175 per square foot. Now you look at 2026, our median home price is $400,000. But if you take 1,800 square feet, multiply it by their $175 square foot, you get only $315,000. But they also bring up they didn't have central air. It wasn't as popular. So let's add another $15,000 because we have central air, gives us $330,000. Meaning it should be $330,000, not $400,000. We're still $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 above what it should be adjusted for inflation and including things like AC and the square footage difference.
A lot of people online have been asking how anyone is supposed to afford the life they were told to work towards when things like moving out, buying a house, and even everyday spending feels completely different than it used to. From people comparing today's prices to the past, questioning why so many young adults still live at home, and pointing out how every little expense seems to add up, the frustration is becoming harder to ignore. Because the biggest change isn't that things are becoming more expensive, it's that the entire path to adulthood looks different when the old rules just don't match the reality that we live in today.
I don't understand how everyone's affording so much stuff in life, and my husband and I just seem to be skating by. And I mean, I'm not complaining. We are very, very lucky, but it just feels like I'm missing something. I don't know if I'm not making enough money, but everybody around us seems to have big homes that they're buying, very expensive homes, cars, very expensive cars, vacations, dinners out, boats, weekends away, stuff they're just always buying, they're always doing. And I know everybody says oh, well, they're probably in credit card debt, but I just can't wrap my head around that. They are making a ton of money, and I don't know what we're doing wrong. My husband works a full-time job, I work a full-time job, we both have part-time jobs, I do extra things. What are we doing wrong? And how can I make more money? That's all I want to know.
It's people out here right now today, man. They would rather make a $800 or $900 a month payment on an SUV or a pickup truck and live in a vehicle than to live in these overpriced ass houses and overpriced ass apartments. It is cheaper to go and finance a vehicle for $700 or $800 a month, and you tack on a little insurance, which is about $300 depending on your age. They'd rather live in a vehicle than to be disrespected and have to pay high mortgage and high rent prices. These apartments now, they use their application process, man, as a way to make money off you. It's a scam. They sell you the dream. They tour you through these apartments and call them luxury. Ain't a damn thing about them luxury, man. You can get an apartment or a house with a pool any damn where. But then they sit there and sell you a dream, making you think that you finna get approved for this apartment, and you pay that $45 or that $100 non-refundable application fee, and then they end up denying you, or they saying you need 3 times the rent. How many people sitting around in 2026 in this economy with 3 times their rent sitting in their account? Come on, man. The reality is people not really doing it, man. Overpriced apartments, overpriced houses. People would rather just live in their vehicles. Well, why not? It's cheaper. You can pull up to a Walmart parking lot after it closed and just go to sleep. You can pull over at truck stops. Truck stops are free. They don't charge you lot space or nothing. You can just pull up at a freaking resting station for trucks and just go to sleep, man. The way that this economy is upside down, man. I see people sleeping at the park on benches. I see people sleeping in their cars, and they don't care if you walking past laughing at them or not. You know why? Because they're actually laughing at you. They know that you gotta pay that high cost of living. They don't. All they gotta do is keep up their car payment every single month. They don't have to worry about property taxes. They don't have to worry about utilities. They don't have to worry about lawn care service. They don't have to worry about none of that stuff. All they gotta do is worry about keeping gas in their vehicle. And there's a lot of people who actually live like that, man. And they're actually able to save money. I'm not trying to encourage anybody to live in their car, but the reality of it is a lot of people are living in their cars and they making a really good life. They even got videos on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram of women living out of their vans. They fix their van up, they go to the beach and take a shower or a bath in the beach. Or you can go to what they call those gas stations, Love's gas stations, pay a couple dollars and you can take a shower there every single day, man. People rather just live in their cars than to live in the house because of the rent is so high, man. You guys let me know in the comments what y'all think. I'm out. Thanks for watching.
Tipping culture has totally gotten out of hand, and this is coming from someone that usually tries to tip really well, because like I've worked in the restaurant industry and like I know what it's like, but like I'm getting to the point where I'm like, no, I'm not going to, because tell me why. I was at a froyo place. I was getting froyo with one of my friends, and it was a self-checkout. Nobody helped us or anything, and I went to go to the little kiosk thing, and then it asked me, do you want a tip? And I was like, what are you talking about? And it literally was like, I automatically already had like an 18% tip. And I was like, this is crazy, because first of all, frozen yogurt, I forget that it's like by the pound. So like that was expensive enough already. And I was like, oh crap. Like, what do you mean you want me to tip? Because listen, I guess the way that I'm kind of getting the mentality now is that like, if no one's helping me, why am I tipping? It's more of just like a genuine curiosity. I understand that like, it's hard out here and the economy is like not great. I do understand that, and maybe in some senses I shouldn't be going out if I can't afford it. That's correct. But this was frozen yogurt. This is not like a luxury or anything. It literally was froyo, and like it was already like $8, and I was like, but also I was hungry, so I did get a lot, but I was like genuinely, it was more of just like, what am I tipping for? Like genuinely, who is this going to? Because nobody was really there. I think there might have been like one girl behind the counter, but like she didn't talk to me or anything, so I was just like, girl, who am I tipping?
For a long time, the idea of becoming an adult seemed pretty straightforward. You're supposed to finish school, get a decent job, move out, and eventually buy a house, and slowly build a comfortable life. But a lot of young people are starting to realize that the path they were taught about was built around a completely different economy. A house that once felt like a realistic goal for an average worker now requires a level of income and saving that many people struggle to reach, even with a good job. That's why so many conversations about housing hit a nerve. It's not just about wanting a bigger house or some luxury lifestyle. For a lot of people, owning a house represents stability, having a place that's truly yours, and feeling like you've reached a point where your hard work actually paid off. The most confusing part is hearing advice like just work harder or save more, when the numbers behind everything have changed. Saving money does matter, and making smart choices matters too, but it becomes harder when the cost of reaching basic milestones grow faster than what many people earn. The result is a generation looking at a traditional version of success and wondering if they're doing something wrong, when the bigger issue is that the environment around them has changed. The same goals still exist, but the path to reach them have become much harder to follow. One of the biggest signs of this change is how differently people are starting to view moving out. For a long time, leaving your parents' house was seen as one of the first steps into adulthood, but for a lot of young Americans now, they're stuck in a strange position where they want independence but also have to think realistically about what they can afford. Living with parents longer used to be treated like a sign that someone wasn't ready to grow up, but that idea doesn't really match reality anymore. When rent takes up a huge part of someone's income, moving out can mean struggling to pay bills, having no savings, and constantly feeling stressed about money. The part people don't always talk about is the emotional side of it. A lot of young adults feel like they're behind because they compare their lives to older versions of adulthood where moving out in your early 20s was more common. Even if staying home is a smarter financial decision, it can still feel like you're waiting for your real life to start. That's why conversations about extreme alternatives like choosing to live in a car because it's cheaper than renting get so much attention. It sounds unrealistic at first, but it shows how much people are questioning whether the normal path is still realistic. When the cost of simply having your own place becomes the biggest obstacle, independence starts looking less like a personal achievement and more like something that depends on whether the numbers work out. For many people, the hardest part isn't wanting to grow up, it's feeling like the opportunity to do so keeps moving further away. Housing might be the biggest expense people think about, but a lot of the frustration comes from something smaller. The feeling that money disappears faster than it used to. It's not always one huge purchase that causes stress, it's the constant little costs that make everyday life feel more expensive than expected. A meal that used to feel affordable, a subscription you forgot about, higher prices at stores, or even small extra charges when buying something can slowly change how people think about spending. Suddenly, even having a normal day out can feel like something you have to calculate beforehand. That's why conversations about tipping culture have become such a big topic. The issue isn't that people don't want to support workers, but that many customers feel like they're constantly being asked to pay more in situations where they didn't expect to. When those moments happen over and over again, it creates the feeling that there's no room to relax with your money. And that feeling adds up. When someone is already worried about saving for a place to live, paying bills, or building a future, every extra expense feels more noticeable. It creates this mindset where people aren't just asking, can I afford this? But is it worth giving up something else for it? At the end of the day, this is why so many young Americans are rethinking what financial success even means. For some, the goal is no longer hitting traditional milestones as quickly as possible. It's about finding stability, having breathing room, and building a life where every decision doesn't feel like a trade-off.